Choosing to have a child is a huge, life-changing decision. Deciding on the number of children to have is also a big decision. Some people take this decision a bit too lightly, and some people have very clear reasons why they are committed to having a certain number of children. I have one child. I am not having any more children. It is not negotiable. I get a lot of questions and some criticism about it. So I'm going to tell you my story. Hi, I'm Leslie and I am a life coach based here in Brisbane, Australia. And I'm also the mother of a very lively, very rambunctious, very amazing 4-year-old girl. Now, before my husband and I had our daughter, we were asked many times by people, when are you going to have a baby? Are you trying to have a baby? You two should have a baby. We got a lot of questions, we got a lot of comments kind of like that. Now that our daughter's about 4, the question that we've been fielding for the last, 3.5 years or something is, when are you going to have another? When's baby number 2 coming along? You don't want to have a huge age gap between number 1 and number 2, with this assumption that the second child is going to happen. So I'm going to explain a little bit about why I've chosen and my husband has chosen to stop at 1 child in the form of answers to some frequently asked questions about our decision. Question 1. But isn't your daughter going to be really lonely growing up without a sibling? Answer, no. That's not something that we're concerned about. First of all, we really work to nurture our daughter's friendships. She has us. She has her friends. She has the kids from her daycare. She has kids from the neighborhood who we meet with and her playgroup. She's got a lot of other kids in her life that she can grow up with, essentially. Kids of friends of ours as well. We make sure that they get time together. And my husband, he was an only child growing up, and he was a lot more committed to the decision of just having 1, even before I was. He, through his lived experience as an only child, didn't have any concerns about whether or not our daughter would grow up lonely. So I trust his lived experience and his knowledge enough to understand that having just 1 kid is not some sort of a life sentence of loneliness. Question 2. Well, don't you want to have a little boy for your husband? Okay, my husband would not raise a little boy any differently from how he's raising our daughter. He wouldn't love a little boy any more than he loves our daughter. And also, you know, the whole genetics thing dictates that you can't choose the sex of the child that you conceive. So I'm not going to chase down this boy and risk having 3 or 4 girls until I get my boy. That just seems silly to me. Question 3. But aren't you worried that your daughter isn't going to develop social skills? That really connects well with the first question about whether or not she's going to grow up lonely. Social skills aren't developed solely through a relationship with a sibling. I'm not trying to throw anyone under a bus here, but I don't believe that my having a sibling did any favors for my social skills. And I find also that older people who have raised more than 1 child into adulthood, sometimes there is that tendency to turn inward when you've got more than 1 kid, to take a family first approach to things like socializing and, why do you need to spend so much time with your other friends when you've got a sibling you can play with, and blah, 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 blah. Everyone's dynamic is different, so there's no guarantee of having these amazing social skills just because you grew up with a sibling. There are other ways to develop social skills. Question number 4. But if you don't have another child, then that reduces your chances of having, a lot of grandkids. Doesn't that worry you? No, it doesn't. Having a child does not put them under any obligation to procreate so that you can have a grandbaby. I feel like I don't have to say anything else about that. So I won't. Question number 5. This is more of a comment. Oh, but if you have another kid, then they can just play with each other and you'll get a bit more time to yourself, and you still have to raise that second child. Firstly, I'm not painting myself as some child-rearing expert, but I find it very hard to wrap my head around the concept of having less responsibility to keep any child entertained because there's another child in the room. How does that work? Someone please explain that whole concept to me. Sure, kids can play together. You know what else they can do together? They can fight, they can throw things, they can team up against you, they can drain you emotionally, financially. It doesn't sound like double the fun to me. So to me, it's not a compelling enough reason to create a whole other human being. Number 6, but what happens when you get really old? Who's going to take care of you? The burden will fall on your only child. That is a valid concern, but it's important to understand also that our aging is not something that we plan to burden our child with. We're going to do whatever we can so that she doesn't have all the responsibility on herself for our care. More to the point, having more than one kid is no guarantee that the responsibilities aren't going to fall onto just one of those children. You can do anything, you can do everything in your power as a parent to try to nurture those sibling bonds as much as possible and still have an imbalance in terms of responsibilities, in terms of, filial piety, however you want to define it. Our hope is that through nurturing our daughter's friendships, through nurturing our daughter's relationships, through giving her the space and the freedom to really live her life and gather her tribe and explore all these different aspects of herself, that she will have a support system in place that will lessen the burden of, having aging or sick parents, or having no parents after we pass. She might have a family of her own. It might be a chosen family, it might be a family that she creates with another person. There are so many possibilities that the thought of treating a child, or like an extra child, as some sort of an insurance policy, to me is just disturbing. That links very well with question number 7. What happens if something happens to your daughter? What if she dies? Then you won't have any children. Again, this is actually a statement I hear a lot. You would be surprised, you might be surprised at how often people ask questions like that. It's a pretty dark question, firstly, and secondly, as I stated previously, a child is not an insurance policy. If I were to lose my daughter, I would be an absolute mess. Not the kind of mess that I would expect another child could remedy. That seems like a lot of pressure to put on that kid. And I don't know whether I would ever emotionally recover enough to feel like I could be fully present for that other child. Plenty of parents have those capabilities and have those thoughts in mind, but it's not something that I see for myself in that weird, dark hypothetical. Question number 8. But don't you want to give your daughter a sibling? No, I don't. I really, really don't. First of all, siblings are not a gift that you give to a child. A whole entire human being is not a gift that you give to a child. The thought that there's this obligation to provide this other whole entire human being, and that is what they are. They're not just babies, they're not just kids. They will develop into whole entire human beings. The thought that that whole entire human being is a gift to another person says a lot about people's ideas around the kinds of obligations people hold in relationships, the kinds of obligations that people put on family. It's an idea, it's a way of thinking that I really don't subscribe to. Because people are not objects to be given. And I understand that there are people out there who have very strong sibling bonds, who have many siblings and have lived very rich and happy lives with their siblings and have this beautiful bond and this beautiful relationship, this beautiful support system. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like, I understand that. And I don't begrudge people for making those decisions at all to have more than one kid for those reasons, but it doesn't reflect my experience growing up, first of all. And it's also, and that doesn't mean that I couldn't provide that sort of experience for my daughter, but I know myself well enough, and my husband knows himself well enough to know that the beautiful experiences that we can provide for our daughter can be provided in different ways. It doesn't have to come from siblings. Number 9. Aren't you worried that she's going to be spoiled? No, we're not worried she's going to be spoiled, because we have values that we instill in her and that we raise her by that don't include having a sense of entitlement to everything. She knows that she's not going to get a bunch of things from us, first of all, because we don't believe in this mass consumerism culture that we kind of live amongst. And she can learn things like sharing and things about being generous with people and being charitable through the example of her parents, the examples of some of the other kids around her, her friends. Sharing does happen within the dynamic of a single child family. It happens even just amongst the 3 of us at home. She has to share with us. She has to share her attention. She has to deal with consequences of her actions just like any other kid might. You know, she's not in danger of becoming spoiled just because there isn't another kid there that we need to divide our attention with. What? Yeah. We don't need to divide our attention amongst a bunch of different kids just so that this one child won't become spoiled. Number 10. One of my favorite questions. But what if your daughter asks for a sibling? My daughter asks for a lot of things. Every now and then when she's having her little pretend play moments, she'll say, like, you know, I wish I had a sister or something. The moment is usually fleeting, and the truth is, sometimes she wishes she had a sister, sometimes she asks for a friggin' dinosaur, sometimes she wants ice cream for breakfast, sometimes she wants to stay up way past her bedtime. My daughter wants a lot of things, but we don't have to give her everything that she wants. And if she ever gets to a point in her life where she does ask, like, genuinely for a sibling, we will explain to her the same things that I've explained to all of you, and a lot of the other reasons, thousands of other reasons why my husband and I have chosen to just have the one child. And whether or not she accepts those things really shouldn't be such a big concern to people that they use it to try to guilt me into breeding another child. I am not that easily persuaded. Alright, so I'm going to call that part 1 of this topic, because those were general responses to frequently asked questions I get, but I also have a whole other set of reasons outside of that why I have chosen and why my husband has chosen to not have any more than one child. That's going to be a whole separate video. So my call to action here is, first of all, don't nag your friends about having another child. But also, if you are on the fence about whether or not you want to have more than one child, I want you to consider all of the reasons or all of the responses that I've outlined here to the questions that I get, and really stand firm in your conviction. There's no reason you should feel pressured to have another child. For a lot of people, it's due to some arbitrary societal norm. For some people, it's something much bigger than that. And for some people, it's more like, oh, well, I have one. What's having two gonna make any difference? It's like, the truth is, it can make a huge difference. So it's really important, if you do decide to have a child or children, to really consider the number of children that you want, that you can handle, and that you're willing to commit to raising throughout their whole life. I'll see you in part 2.
Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and share it with someone else who can benefit from it. Subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications bell so you know exactly when I've uploaded a new video. You can also book a free life coaching session with me through my website, leslievcoaching.com, and we can work together online or right here in my studio. Follow me on my socials to keep up with what I'm doing, and please get in touch with any questions, comments, or video ideas you may have. I'm Leslie V, and I'll see you in the next video.